Hey everyone! Oh my goodness, I just realized something. Welcome to Normal America Show. Your host Rob Norm, back in my home studio. Look at this. Goodness gracious. Boom! We're live on air. Come on now. What are you doing, Rob? That's better. Hope you're all having a great day. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I wanted to show you some gifts that people have sent me. Maybe we'll just play the little short that I did. But people have been incredibly generous. Tengo, who maybe we'll see in the chat today, sent me a book, a kind message. Can't really wait to read the book. Then I had a friend in real life, an acquaintance, give me a cool Trump coin. It's been good. It's been, for all the hate you get, especially if you're arguing against bigger streamers, you get a lot of garbage, hate, and stuff. You also get a lot of people that are very positive. So it really does. It's one of the nice little perks of streaming. You get a lot of kind comments and people donating money to you and donating other gifts. How come no one's donated money yet in this stream? No, I'm just kidding. You guys are incredibly generous. It really is. Do I have a P.O. box? I do not. I used to. I now no longer do. Hit me up, Travis. Hit me up on my DM on X, and I might be able to give you an address. So, yeah, I agree. Trump should do more rallies with Tulsi and RFK. I agree with that. So yeah, I'll be honest. Wow, it's been a day. I did see that with Sticks and the Hammer. I didn't know whether to take it serious or not. I think he's had some legal troubles, maybe a domestic situation with the lady friend. He did ask for anyone he needs 2 notaries. I find it difficult to believe that there's not notaries available in his town. I mean, even where I'm at, there's notaries about, but I never know. With these internet personalities, you can never tell if they're being serious or if it's some sort of gag or sarcasm. I don't know. Yeah, the cope's been hysterical. We'll talk about some of the cope. So one of the unfortunate things about today's show is I basically have planned next to nothing. So I'm really hoping that some lefty wants to call in and debate. That would be ideal. That's what we want. Let's try to chum people in here on X. Oh. One second. This is unprofessional. I should have done this before I started. But what can I say? If there's one thing you can count on me for being, it's being unprofessional. It'll be worth it if we could chum in a lefty, won't it? There we go. Yeah, so sorry I missed the chat there. Yeah, I would love for someone to call in and argue that Kamala did amazing. But yeah, if Pisco or anyone wants to call in tonight, now I'm available. I'm home. I could chat it up. So other than that, we're going to talk a little about the reaction to the fallout of the Kamala Harris train wreck interview on Fox News. Maybe we'll play some clips of that. Though I did say most of my piece on that last night. Then I thought we could either So we'll go back to that old hat where I'll just take recommendations for people and I will do short 2-minute videos on whatever topic you want, except I'll do them live here. Thought we could do that jam tonight. But whatever you're feeling. Connor. Old progressive victory points. Good stuff. Let me check my settings real quick to make sure my audio's... Yep, we good. But man, I'm brutally tired. I've been burning the candle. I think my crazy work week has finally ended. Well, I'm home, obviously, but doing home health care. You get these government audits once a year. This was our audit week, so it's been working crazy hours. I get off today, or I got off today at 2 o'clock, and then I go back into work Saturday at 3. I think it's funny. It's amazing to me how, like, as soon as you're like, hey, we'll talk about whatever people want, it's inevitable. I don't give a shit. Left, right, centrist. The first question's always going to be, what about Israel? Israel, what do you have to... Israel's the worst ever. They're the fucking great Satan. They're the worst ever. Israel's the greatest country ever. It's amazing to me. It's amazing how passionate people... If only there was 1 ounce of that passion for the real issues that affect our country. Lockdowns under COVID, inflation, open border, all that shit. All right, Grim Sparrow. What about Israel? What's my thoughts on Israel? I support Israel, but I think we shouldn't fund them and send military equipment unless Iran's involved. Yeah, Israel should fight their own wars. We shouldn't be sending them money. We should also not be sending their enemies money. That's about it. So... They should be allowed to do whatever they want to their opponents. The United States is ran by people that want to meddle in foreign policy and make situations worse all around the world. They can't be trusted. They are corrupt. They do not have the interest of the people of Israel at heart. They do not have the interest of the people of Palestine at heart. They don't have the interest of the people of Ukraine at heart. They have the interest of themselves. Their interests do not align with the citizens of the United States. If there was a time for a unipolar world where we needed the United States to be the world police and the hegemon, it would only be if we had the ability to do so and had benevolent, competent people that were running our intel agencies and foreign policy. We do not. So the first thing we could do before we root out those incompetent and corrupt people is stop meddling in these world affairs, particularly when there are people back home that are struggling mightily that we should be putting our resources to. And that would be my suggestion. I don't mind attempts at negotiation, setting teams down to the table, but why do I have my Odyssey link on my link tree? Because there are still old videos of mine that you can only find on Odyssey. So I left it up there. But I haven't been posting anything to Odyssey in quite some time. Serious question. If Harris is elected, does she sign the border bill they are selling as being shut down by Trump? First off, it would have to be a situation where they have the appropriate numbers in the House and the Senate. I don't know that she would have that, but assuming she did and the bill came to her desk, sure, she would sign it because the border bill is actually a disaster. In reality, it won't do anything to protect the border. It will give more authority to people in the Harris administration to be able to selectively enforce and use loopholes to make sure that it is now legal for 5,000 people a day to come across the border. Now, this will be just like we hear about the Haitians. They say, but the Haitians are legal. They're legal. How can you complain? How dare you call them illegal? We voted on it. So that will be what they say. This also allows them to send huge amounts of money to NGOs to facilitate more illegals coming. So yes, she would probably happily sign this border bill because the reality is it was never a border bill that was designed to secure the border. It was designed to do the opposite. So I'm sure she would sign it if she had that opportunity. Oh, you voted? Good for you, man. Good for you. Water. So, where are we going to start today? if we can't find someone to debate, which hopefully we can, but if we can't, then we'll just go about with the show. So the reactions, first off, you can go last night and watch my video on the Harris disastrous train wreck interview with Bret Baier on Fox News. It was a disaster. I go through it in great detail last evening, so you can check that out. It was YouTube only, unfortunately, because I had to do it at work on my phone. Thanks so much, Neighbor Guy, for the super chat, $2. What up, nerds? The nerds are out today, myself included, chief amongst them. Proud to be a redneck nerd. Not very good at being a redneck or a nerd, but still proud. So it's hilarious then to see the reactions. So it really is amazing at the sort of ability for the left, the establishment, to stay on message. Now, let me be completely honest with all of you. You shouldn't take my word on how the Harris interview went. You shouldn't. You should watch it yourself and come to your own conclusion. The same is true of anything. A State of the Union speech, a debate, a town hall, any of these things. All of us have biases. All of us, hypothetically, should be individuals, and we should come up with our own conclusions on things. And even though I'm being authentic, and I am, and I'm giving my honest opinions on things, I'm not beyond bias, and I'm not right 100% of the time, just like 99.999. But in all seriousness, you should check things out for yourself when you have time. The problem is, when do you have time? When do I have time? Certain events occur that millions of people watch and that are bigger ticket items, such as a presidential debate. Probably, if you're interested in politics, you make time to see that. But how many people watched the Ted Cruz debate? With Allred, I think, is the guy that he was debating. How many people watched the Elizabeth Warren debate? I didn't watch either of those. I only saw small clips of those debates on X, and I saw people saying Ted Cruz crushed it, and Ted Cruz got crushed. And I saw people saying Elizabeth Warren crushed it, and people saying Elizabeth Warren got crushed. What am I to believe? If I see a segment like 4 minutes, 2 minutes, I could say, this was a good point made in this segment. But that's not going to be indicative of an entire debate. And more importantly, that's not going to give you an insight in exactly what was going on through the tone. So I prefer to watch things myself in real time if possible, and then come up with my own conclusion. And then I do like reading other people's takes or watching other people's takes as well. But with all of these things out there, it's impossible, unless your full-time job is doing politics, to actually sit down and dig into the details of many of these things, whether it be reading court decisions, or watching trials, or watching debates, or reading through 1,000-page bills. Thanks so much, Handyman Jack, for the $5. Says, thoughts on overturning the hand-counting vote rule in Georgia? I'll get to it. Remind me later. You're not going to get to... I mean, I guess I'll just answer it right now. Yeah, thoughts are shit. Of course, they will do everything possible to ensure that the votes are as murky as possible. Any reasonable country interested in a fair system would have voting as simple as possible and as auditable as possible. Instead, we have intentionally set up, the people that run this country have intentionally set up a system that is intentionally unauditable. They've made voting convoluted. It's not just one day. You can vote by mail. It's different for different places. For example, there are ballots that you could get if you're overseas without even providing proof of residency. You can get a ballot in certain states. They're not checking on that sort of stuff. They're intentionally having voting systems that they know would be easily hacked. They insist that we do it. They fight against cleaning up the voter rolls. They fight against having people that are actually there watching to make sure no shenanigans is going on. They fight against making sure that ballots are hand counted. All of this is done because the intent is to make sure that people do not have faith in our election system. And even if they're not cheating, it is set up to maximize the possibility of cheating. You can draw your own conclusion why they would want to do that. Anyways, back to the Harris debate and what I was talking about. With all of these things out there, even someone like me, who as a hobby enjoys watching these debates and looking into these things, I probably only get to see like 5 to 10% of much of the stuff that I would want to dig into. So then I'm relying for my takes on many things on what other people are saying. And isn't that what history is? Isn't that what we all do for events that we weren't around for? We're relying on recounting and interpretation from others through testimony of people or reporting of people that were there at the time, that's been filtered through different lenses. Now, this isn't to say truth doesn't exist, that everything's subjective. I'm just saying this is reality. I've many times looked through documents like an IG report on Crossfire Hurricane, and I found myself in real time going, how come I haven't heard anyone say this? I find this to be a very important part. But oftentimes, 80 to 90% of the commentary is being directed by a small handful of people, and if they're not picking up on something or don't think it's important, then it never makes it out there in the ether, even though it's in black and white, because it's buried in a 1,000-page report. Same's true of analyzing debates or press conferences or interviews. And one of the things that's amazing to me is when you sit down and you watch one of these things, and then you watch the narrative that's crafted around it. And that, to me, was what happened last night with the train wreck interview of Kamala Harris on Fox News. To watch in real time, because the interview occurred, then I streamed for a couple hours, then I had a bunch of work stuff I had to do, and I went to bed, and so I woke up today and was like, okay, let's see what the interpretations were. And yes, there were an awful lot of people that had a very similar take to me, which I think is objectively true, that this was a really bad interview for Kamala Harris. It was bad on the substance, it was bad tonally, how she sounded, and it was bad in what she was trying to accomplish, kind of assuaging people that are undecided at this point that she has a clear-cut plan, she's different than Joe Biden. I don't have another debate lined up right now, Wesley. Hopefully today someone wants to call in, so my next debate would be today. Make sure we didn't chum anyone in yet. But many of the people in our Democratic Party, our establishment institutions, mainstream media people, etc., they had a shocking, albeit predictable take, which was that Kamala Harris did wonderfully. She did amazing. Some of them are people that I deal with regularly, like streamers that I've dealt with, or people that I clash with on X. Some of them were people like Mark Cuban. Some of them were people like Democratic media surrogates. And to watch them gaslight people, and all using the same terminology. Testy. It was a testy exchange. By the way, did you see what I say? Everything's about Israel. Someone comes in, doesn't know of me, Khalid there. Very first thing, you're a Zionist, Israel. Sad that we live in that world. And so it was just amazing to watch these people. She was brave. She went into the lion's den. She She's had one adversarial interview in like 5 years. And then now all of a sudden she's brave. And the way these people shamelessly lie is just unbelievably amazing. I say this all the time. People like me, my greatest strength is my greatest weakness. I'm being authentic. I can't come on here and tell a blatant lie. It's not to say I don't mess up. I don't sometimes tell things that are wrong or not true. But I'm incapable of coming on here saying, I think Trump lost this debate. I think he lost the debate to Kamala Harris. Oh, well, I'm going to act like it was perfect. It was awesome. He did great. And I'm going to tell my audience that Trump won. I can't do that. So I come on and I say, I think Trump lost the debate. And my audience is infuriated. How could you say that? No, Trump won the debate. He won. So much so that for a month after the debate with Kamala Harris, I still had people in my call-in show weekly. That's the number one thing they want to argue about. You're wrong. Trump won the debate. Inversity, thanks so much for the sub. I really appreciate it. But that's who I am. I think that ultimately for my conscience and for me as a person, and in the long run, that's a huge advantage. That's a huge strength to be authentic. But it's also a weakness, particularly in the short term. Particularly if you're trying to gaslight people into voting for the way you want. The people I interact with, no such scruples. Sure, they'll cloth it in, well, I'm just trolling. Like someone like Pisco. That's what he'll do. I'm just trolling. He was posting out on X. I heard people inside Trump's camp are furious. They're shaking because Kamala did so great. That's it. Kamala wins the interview. She did great. And there's actually, not for Pisco, but that's a narrative that's being pushed consistently. She did great. She did great. She did great. And there is strength in, if a bunch of people just sit around and repeat it over and over again, it does start to shape the narrative. It's how we got the idea that it was all cheap fakes that Joe Biden had cognitive decline. Everyone said it. All the media, all the Biden people, all the Democrats. No, he's great. He's great. Sharpest guy in the room behind the scenes. How dare you? And these institutions, when they're all pushing the same narrative and controlling the narrative over and over again, it becomes effective. And it shapes our conversations. So, for example, I just had a video removed off TikTok for talking about the idea that Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer have both announced that they want to give a pathway to citizenship to illegals. They want the millions of illegals that they left in, and the entire time they were leaving them in said, "It's how dare you? It's a racist trope to suggest that we're leaving these people in to vote. They can't vote. How dare you?" And now they're saying, "Of course we want to give them citizenship. It would be cruel not to." Gets removed. They've shaped that narrative. That's the narrative. They've said it over and over again. Real Kev, thanks so much. Super chat, $10. Rob, I'm in PA. What's your honest forecast on the election result in your state? Early vote data looks better for GOP. Keep fighting the good fight, sir. I'm still predicting that Trump will lose. I think he will lose in Pennsylvania because I think that ballot harvesting will be insurmountable. I am not convinced that Republicans did enough to ensure the safety of our elections, nor to compete at the level that Democrats will do ballot harvesting. I think that they will have an even more impressive turnout from ballot harvesting this time around. If that changes, then we have one man to thank for it, and that's Scott Pressler, who's been working his tail off here in Pennsylvania, trying to get people to register early to vote, to get mail-in ballots, etc. But I think it'll be insurmountable here in Pennsylvania. Yes, ballot harvesting is legal in Pennsylvania. Yes, your signature on your voter registration does not have to match your signature when you go vote. No, you do not have to provide an ID to vote. Republicans complained about it in 2020. Then in the midterms of 2022, they lost to John Fetterman, who was basically a human vegetable. They had done nothing on the ground whatsoever from 2020 to 2022 to impact the vote by mail and ballot harvesting. We'll see. Maybe they've made a change. I haven't seen evidence of it. So, anyways, back to crafting the narrative. These narratives with illegals voting, you can see how that was shaped. And so they just repeat. They know they're full of it. They all know that Kamala Harris did terribly. They just don't care. What they're counting on is the vast majority of people, either the majority of people won't have seen the interview or only see little clips of it. And even those that do, if everyone's saying one thing that they're listening to, they'll just agree with it. Now, let me see if I can find this video. Have you ever heard of the Asch conformity experiment? I think this is the video I want. Let's watch this slight video to give you a little idea of what I'm talking about. Let's unmute it first, huh? That'd be a good step.
An experiment is not a public opinion poll. It examines behavior under the pressure of social forces, as the experiment of Solomon Asch reveals.
The experiment you'll be taking part in today involves the perception of lengths of lines. As you can see here, I have a number of cards, and on each card there are several lines. Your task is a very simple one. You're to look at the line on the left and determine which of the three lines on the right is equal to it in length. All right, we'll proceed in this order. You'll give your answer.
Only one of the people in the group is a real subject, the fifth person with the white t-shirt. The others are confederates of the experimenter and have been told to give wrong answers on some of the trials. The experiment begins uneventfully as subjects give their judgments.
2. 2.
2,
2.
2, 3,
3.
3,
3.
But on the third trial, something happens.
2, 2,
2.
2, 2.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence.
1,
Asch found subjects went along with the group on 37% of the critical trials. But he found through interviews that they went along with the group for different reasons.
1.
1.
They must be right. There are 4 of them and 1 of me.
1.
This subject's yielding is based on a distortion of his judgment. He genuinely believes that the group is correct.
1.
1,
1.
2, 1, 2, 2, 2,
I know they're wrong, but why should I make waves?
2,
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group. Here, the distortion is at the level of his response.
2, 2, 2, 2.
In the previous experiment, the naive subject stood alone against the group. In this variation, Asch gave the naive subject a partner, here seated in the third position, who also gives the correct response.
1.
1. 2.
1. 2.
With a partner, yielding drops to only 5% of the critical trials compared to 37% without a partner. Although subjects report warmth and good feeling toward the partner, they typically deny that he played a role in their own independence. The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. When that unanimity is punctured, the group's power is greatly reduced. Sometimes we go along with the group because what they say convinces us they are right. This is called informational conformity. But sometimes we conform because we are apprehensive that the group will disapprove if we are deviant. This is called normative conformity. The strength of the normative factor is shown in another variation carried out by Asch. In this variation, the subject is told that because he had arrived late, he would have to write his answers. Subjects in this private response experiment are exposed to the same amount of misleading information as other subjects, but they are immune from any possible criticism by the group.
1.
1.
1.
And this enormously reduces the pressure to conform. Conformity drops by 2/3. Asch's experiment is a classic. It reveals how people will deny what they see and submit to group pressure. It allows us not only to observe conformity, but to study the conditions that increase or reduce its occurrence.
It's really amazing. It really is. The idea that you could be peer pressured into believing that what you're seeing with your eyes isn't the case. It's truly a remarkable thing. And this experiment's dealing with something that there's a simple objective truth, the length of something. So you could see, if I was to say which of these two objects is longer, this pencil or these glasses, objectively the pencil's longer. And yet still, 37% of people were willing to deny the truth in front of their own eyes, either because they felt the necessity to give in to peer pressure to not rock the boat, or because they truly believe they must be wrong. And that's a simple objective truth. Now imagine something that's not as simple or as objective, like how well someone did in a debate, or how well they did in an interview. And it really is quite amazing the power of just having the most powerful people constantly hit home the exact same argument over and over. She did great. She did great. She's powerful. Or a message. She's joyful. She's joyful. She's joyful. J.D. Vance is weird. He's weird. He's weird. And it's not just that the majority of the environments where we get our information are basically all coming at things from the pro-establishment side. But it's also that there are millions upon millions upon millions of dollars being raised in this particular instance of this campaign to push those messages over and over and over again. Yeah, Tengo. By the way, Tengo, don't let me know if you're leaving tonight, because I did a little short where I talked about you, and I would like to play it before the end of the show today. There's the link to the video. Now, I think we'll find out at some point in our lifetimes just how fraudulent much of the money that was raised by the Democrats through places like Act Blue is. That's a conversation for another day. Raymond, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, says, if the regime has the election in the bag already, then none of this is necessary. Well, it's not that simple. We'll talk about that. This is why Elon Musk is a bigger threat than Donald Trump. Because Elon Musk allows, through X, one of the largest social media platforms, a piercing of the uniformity of their message. That's what happens. And that to them is a far bigger threat. That's why you see former Secretaries of State John Kerry and Hillary Clinton come out and say we need to change the First Amendment. We need to have a war on disinformation. That's why you've seen Mike Benz, and I agree with him, saying that these attacks on free speech online are the biggest threat that we need to deal with. Because if I can't even have this conversation with you, then cultural change or political change becomes very difficult to accomplish. I'll tell you another story I've mentioned before. When Mao had his great leap forward in China, there were all these like insane things that people had to do, sometimes on a daily basis. One of the things they had to do at certain times of the day was they were all supposed to basically pray to Mao. And after Mao had passed, some years went by, and they started to interview people that lived through this. And many of them said they found it to be quite ridiculous. But they thought they were the only ones. Because you couldn't speak about it, you'd be killed. If you told the wrong person, I think this is ridiculous, they would execute you. So you were alone. You just went along to get along. When the authoritarians control the message in an almost universal manner, it's near impossible to have organic change without a disastrous, upheaval, revolution, etc. To me, by the way, this is why it is the most important issue to vote, not necessarily for Donald Trump, but against the establishment institutions represented in this case by the Kamala Harris regime. They will attack free speech. In the next 4 years, I'm not going to be thrown in a gulag if Kamala Harris wins. I doubt. There's a possibility. There will be more MAGA-type people that will be arrested. Theoretically, it could be me. And make no mistake about it. Even the people that have a friendly-ish relationship with me online that I debate against, they would believe any accusation against me. If the FBI said we heard plotting through Telegram that Rob Noor was involved with the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys to engage in some sort of violent activity, they would believe it. They would say, oh, well, that would be that. But that will be reserved for people that are low-hanging fruit or people that are actually making inroads and powerful. People like the Trump family stand to be very likely to have lawfare used against them. People like Elon Musk, Steve Bannon. What will be reserved for the rest of us will just be slowly silencing us. It'll be like during COVID. You'll just be demonetized or have your video struck for a community guideline strike if you run afoul of the government messaging. It started with COVID. Election issues. They'll keep up those sorts of issues. Then maybe next time it'll be, you can't criticize Ukrainian funding. That's considered pro-Russian talking points. And inevitably, within a decade, we'll get to the point if these people continue to maintain and consolidate power, where any sort of political speech that will be critical of them will be subject to censorship. Thanks so much, Miles, for $5. Says, hey, Rob, I think Kamala is the result of Democrats not getting the same scrutiny from the media as Republicans. It's left them intellectually flabby. Of course, absolutely true. Let me grab a water. It seems speculative. How else do you explain that most of our NGO cutouts that work with places like the CIA, such as the Atlantic Council, are literally having seminars where they're instructing the very people that should be the most for free speech, in this case, members of the press, and how to advocate for the censorship of everyday Americans. Remember the video I did on Mike Benn's video? Dismay, distort, distract. What was the other D? The 3 types of misinformation that must be censored. You have misinformation, which is information that's incorrect. Then you have disinformation, which is information that are lies. And then you have malinformation, which is information that is true, but is not liked by the establishment. Much of this is coming through executive branch agencies such as the Department of State? How do we have two former secretaries of state, Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, both in the past month, saying that we need radical changes to fighting disinformation or to the First Amendment? No, I didn't see The Apprentice movie. So that's why Elon Musk is a bigger threat than Donald Trump. But to me, and this is where the anti-Trump Republicans are making a mistake, the things that they could rightfully criticize Trump for example, that he's not that conservative. Many of them are upset that he doesn't want a 100% national abortion ban. That is literally cheering for Trump to have no chance to win. But I understand the people that are vehemently pro-life, to that extent, are willing to sacrifice the entire country and never win an election again for that issue. And I can't even really blame them because the argument's quite sound. So what? In order to have a tax policy and free speech policy and Second Amendment policy that we could respect and enjoy, we have to sacrifice babies? It's a decent argument. Of course there's such a thing as disinformation. And? So? It's like saying, but you would agree there's such a thing as speech that could hurt someone's feelings. Sure. That's a completely different conversation than should we censor speech that hurts people's feelings? Bubblegum Gun for $5 says, communism versus capitalism, collectivism versus individualism, left versus right, atheist versus theist, at all lines. It's the same battle by different levels. I don't disagree. So that's sort of the battle lines of where we stand. These never Trumpers, they have a lot of things to complain about Trump, rightfully so. And by the way, I hope they keep their complaints up if Trump would win. I hope they hold his feet to the fire. But they might not have the ability to say what they want to say for their conservative message if Trump doesn't win. Anyways, back to Kamala Harris. So you can see that the Democrats and sort of the pro-establishment voices are very good at taking a message and just hammering it home with consistency. So I'll play a little short. By the way, please check out my channel. I'm trying to put shorts up every day on YouTube. I put several up yesterday, several up today. They only get like 20 views. So it would really mean a lot to me. And they're short. So, this one has 100 views.
Well, the talking points...
Let's play it. One of the first things I noticed today was this post. Let's see, I don't know if I can full screen this. I can't. But if you could see the little image behind me here. CNN, Business Insider, News Press Now, Newsmax, AP... Kamala Harris defends economic plan in Testy Fox News interview. They all use the exact same language. Here's what I say.
Well, the talking points went out in the mainstream media of the Democratic Party, but I repeat myself, hope that you didn't see the disastrous Kamala Harris interview with Bret Baier on Fox. Now they're telling you that it was a testy exchange, more like an implosion. Watch this interview for yourself. It's hilarious on two levels. One, because substantively, she has zero answers to basic questions such as, when did you notice Biden's cognitive decline? No answer. How come you've changed your position on everything? No answer. What do you regret rescinding the executive orders that secured our border? No answer. It's just Trump, 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 Trump. But she also claims to be the candidate of joy. And the first time she's asked adversarial questions by a member of the press, she flips out and starts yelling. Worse than what we see from Donald Trump. So in all accounts, this was a disaster, but the media, like always, will gaslight you just like they did about Biden's cognitive decline and say, oh, Kamala Harris did fine. It was just a testy exchange.
So that's just one example. They all come up with the same talking points simultaneously. They do it in the debates and everything else. The one time that they were actually truthful was when they had an agenda, and that's when they wanted to force Joe Biden out. So it was so blatant how bad he did in that debate with Donald Trump. Of course, you had the hangers-ons. There were people that tried to claim that Joe Biden won that debate with Donald Trump. Quite literally the worst debate performance on a national stage for president in my lifetime by a long shot. Maybe ever. And yet you still had people that were like, no, he did great. He won. Just to give you an idea of where people are. But to those that finally were forced to be like, wow, this was a disaster, they did so with an agenda. Let me explain. If the Trump-Biden debate had occurred like next week, so like 14 days before the election, and it's too late to remove Joe Biden, how do you think Jake Tapper would have reacted? How do you think ABC would have reacted? Roar89, thanks so much for the super chat for $20, said, I had a surprise paid day off, and all I've been whacking libs on X. Started with the Kamala interview and ended with dunking on some about Hillary server situation. We all live in two worlds for sure. I don't know what to do. Yeah, it's crazy. I am testy. I'm a bit testy today. What do you think they would have done? They would have gaslit you just like they did with the Tim Walz debate. Just like they did with the Kamala Harris interview. They would have. They would have said, oh, Biden did phenomenally. Sure, he had some, that old stutter came back again, Joe Biden and his stutter. But he was telling the truth. And the moderators were terrible. It was terrible. The moderation was terrible. You know it. We all know it. And they would have repeated it verbatim. They're so good at getting the talking points and just repeating it over and over and over. And they're very good at controlling the narrative and what people are talking about. Again, X is one of the only reasons that they don't have near total control on that. It's something that I fall for all the time. It's something my audience, I love you guys, that you fall for all the time. I'll bet if I asked people in my audience, hey, what debate would you want to see me set up? Inevitably, one of the first things people would say is like, you should debate Destiny on January 6th. You should go debate more people on January 6th. That's how effective they are at controlling the narrative. Even people that should know better, myself included, constantly fall for the trap. Constantly. We allow them to say, here's the window of things that we could talk about. How about Joe Biden's mishandling of classified information? How many debates did I do on that? How many debates did I do on the Robert Hur report? Want to know how many people wanted to debate me on that? Well, that's not true. We had one guy call in and get wrecked. And yet, panel after panel, spaces after spaces, one-on-one debate after one-on-one debate. January 6th. Oh, I'm blacklisted from Destiny's channel. So they have the ability to control the narrative, to ignore topic. That's why, for example, the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Had there been an assassination attempt of Kamala Harris that occurred 2 months ago, we would still be talking about it as the most important story in the country today. That would still be the number one story in the country. Still. It would still be. Democrats would be in front of cameras every day. There would be hearings that the media would be talking about nonstop. They would be demanding investigations into Republicans, Trump, MAGA people to see if they had connections to the assassin. But we're so poor at getting our narrative out there that we just jump onto the next news cycle. How many times did people in our circle talk about J.D. Vance being weird? Got to watch putting things in quotation marks. I don't want to get put on notice again. And then when they're forced to talk about something, like the Tim Walz debate, the Kamala Harris Bret Baier interview, they just deny reality. It's the Shaggy, wasn't me. Remember that song? The guy's talking about his girlfriend catching him. She caught me banging on the bathroom. Wasn't me. I got you on video. Wasn't me. And it works. It actually is somewhat effective. Or it may be effective. We'll see. And I'll admit, it's a weakness that I have. And it's one of the reasons that people troll like this. Because it's a weakness that many people have. If you're interested in the truth, and you're interested in discussion and debate, one of the most difficult things to deal with is someone who's just blatantly doesn't give a shit. And just going to lie right to your face. I deal with this all the time, and you can tell that it's one of my greatest weaknesses and one of my biggest pet peeves. Let me go back and give you an example of a little streamer drama that I had that will illustrate this point. So, friend of the show, Aftershock, years ago, had a run-in with this guy who I enjoyed talking to, a guy by the name of GSU Gambit. I think, if I remember, he was more libertarian adjacent, but I did many panels with him. I enjoyed conversations with him. I thought he was an interesting guy. Him and Aftershock had a falling out. Listen, everybody that watches me is their own person. I don't need to have to fight their battles for them. You know, Flim Talk on there might absolutely despise Aircraft Sparky, you know, a streamer friend of mine. That's okay. I'm not going to wade into that battle. Let them hash it out. None of my business. So I didn't care. So, just to give you a little background story into this bit of drama that none of you probably care about, but it's to illustrate a point that I'm making here. There was another person named Cut Sleeves who happened to be black. It's important for this story. He was younger, was going into college, and was going to join a debate team in college. So I actually sort of befriended him and was talking to him because I debated in college, and Cut Sleeves still calls into the show from time to time, and he's doing well. He's doing well debating in college, which I'm very excited for. I believe he's already at the varsity level, which is very impressive. Blake Norman, thanks for the $5. Says, Harris, let's raise the taxes on the rich so they raise the prices on goods. Lefty voters. Yes, please do, of course. Anyways, Cut Sleeves would call in with Aftershock to my show from time to time. Aftershock's fighting with GSU Gambit. GSU Gambit allegedly says that Cut Sleeves is a young, dumb black man and that he's being invited onto my show to exploit black people. That's what this GSU Gambit guy says. Allegedly. Now, he could say that, and I would say, F you. That'd be the end of it, though. I wouldn't care. I would still talk to GSU Gambit. But he did something far worse, in my opinion, than accuse me of pandering to Cut Sleeves because I'm exploiting him because he's a dumb black guy, which is offensive to Cut Sleeves. It's offensive to me to a little bit, but whatever. He comes on the show and says, I never said that. I didn't say that. Never said it. I said Aftershock's exploiting a young, dumb black person, but I didn't say you. And Aftershock's like, I think you said that the person that invited him on, that would include Rob. And he's adamant. Never said it. Did not say it. Never said it. Didn't say it. Never said that. That's outrageous. How dare you lie and say that I said that? So we're having this conversation for like 30 minutes, and someone sends me a video and is like, here's the video where he supposedly said it, and he was on a different channel. And I go through the video, and what do you know? I find the exact quote of him saying that. I'm like, okay, GSU Gambit, here's the quote. And I play it. And without skipping a beat when I play the quote, he's like, yeah, so what? Yeah, I said it, but whatever. He's not welcome back to my channel. Not because he said I was exploiting a young, dumb black guy, but because he wasted my time. Because he blatantly lied. This happens to me over and over and over again. People call in and they'll say something, and they'll say, I didn't say that. And I'll say, yeah, you just said that 5 minutes ago. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. No, how dare you? I didn't say that. Okay, so we're going to go back in the tape? Maybe you're right. Maybe I misheard. Then we go back. Oh, okay, you did say it. This sort of thing happens all the time, where people will just blatantly lie. Again, the incident that I talk about the most, because I enjoyed debating him the most, was Pisco, the Jamal Bowman situation. People still don't understand what my hang-up was. Pisco's this left-wing lawyer that I debated all the time. I liked debating sort of these issues of corruption and things like that with him, even though I think he's partisan beyond recognition and he's bad faith about it. It still challenged me to dig into the specifics of things, help me grow as understanding these situations. I enjoyed doing it. When I say it was bad faith, I just mean he's so partisan that he can't see reality. He's gaslit himself into believing this stuff. But still, deep down, you assume that if you decisively win an argument, that your opponent would have to be like, oh, okay, yeah, on that part you're right. Enter the Jamal Bowman situation. Pisco had been telling me for months that lying to law enforcement was a serious deal that warranted filing charges. It was an argument that he made to justify the prosecution of George Papadopoulos, for example, or to justify the investigation and charging of Mike Flynn. Lying to law enforcement's very serious when it comes to people connected to Trump. Fair enough. Okay. He also made the mistake of saying Jamal Bowman clearly, he believed that the alarm was going to go off when he pulled a fire alarm. That's just beyond the pale to think he didn't believe that. And so when we found out, the record was released from law enforcement showing Jamal Bowman, when asked specifically, did you intend for an alarm to go off? He said no. Now that's it. Clear as day. Pisco already admitted that would be a lie. Of course he intended for an alarm to go off. And that's something that law enforcement should charge, lying to law enforcement. So dead to rights. Okay, Pisco, here's a double standard. Why wasn't he charged? And Pisco decided to just blatantly lie to all of us. In the most blatant of ways. He says, oh, I believe that when Bowman said I didn't intend for an alarm to go off, what he really meant was I did intend for an alarm to go off. So therefore, it's not a lie. That, to me, was so discouraging because I'm like, God damn, what's the point of any conversation with that guy at that point forward? He'll never admit anything of reason that makes his side look bad. And so, what's his take on Kamala Harris's disastrous interview on Fox? She did great. Trump's team's shaking in their boots. What's his take of Tim Walz's disastrous debate performance against J.D. Vance? Tim Walz won. Sounds like the baby gate fell downstairs. I heard my wife yell, Hank! And it is frustrating to deal, like, how do you deal with that if you're like someone who wants to debate and you're like, you know, and I guess the more blatant things is like, you know, Trump said drink bleach. No, he didn't. Here's the exact quote. Yeah, he did. I heard it with my own ears. He said drink bleach. He never said drink bleach. Yes, he did. Then you go through the quote. Okay, he didn't say drink bleach. He said drink disinfectant, which we know means bleach. No, he didn't say drink at all. Okay, he said inject disinfectant, which could only mean bleach. No, there actually are medical things that are disinfectants that you can inject. But we know that he was talking about drinking bleach. Anyways, next story. He said Nazis were fine people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Someone mentioned earlier the two pictures that we're living in, the two movies. You know, I have a friend, very smart dude, who I really like. He's a crazy lefty, but he's legitimately one of my best friends. When the report on Mike Flynn came out, the 302, I read it and was like, wow, this is it? He's basically like, they keep asking him, are you sure you didn't have conversation about this stuff? And he's saying, like, I don't know, it could have happened, I don't remember. And I'm like, this is it? This is what they went after this dude for? Like, that's so benign. And that night, I happened to call my friend called me for different things. But he did mention, did you see that 302 came out? I was like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. He's like, me neither. Flynn committed treason. What? Yeah, clear case of treason. Treason? What? How do you deal with that? How would you deal with someone if you're sitting in a room with a friend and you're live watching? Thanks so much, Admiral Gibbs. Thanks so much for the viewers and the generous raid. How would you justify if you were sitting in the room with someone during the Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate and you're watching Joe Biden implode, show clear signs of cognitive decline, and you look over and your friend's like, Biden's crushing it. This is awesome. Trump's getting destroyed. What possible conversation can you have with that person regarding politics? It went through, Gibbs. It did. Thank you, man. I appreciate it as always. So then we have the Kamala Harris disastrous implosion on Fox News, which, by the way, you can go check out my live stream or on YouTube only from last night, or you could check out my YouTube shorts that I have talking about this. Now, Dave Timmerman, that's one of the worst takes imaginable. I almost respect the person that will blatantly lie to you or that is so partisan that they've gaslit themselves into believing something than you. Here's Dave Timmerman, right? Let's go with Dave Timmerman's. Actually, when two people disagree on something, what's likely is the truth is in the center, that both people are wrong. And as a big brain centrist, I see that. I'm able to see through these things and understand. We listen to this person and we listen to that person. We say, you both are incorrect. Actually, the truth falls somewhere in between. Yeah, man, that is one of the most vapid, worthless takes imaginable. It really is. Dave Timmerman, if you don't think that the Kamala Harris debate was an implosion, or a discussion on Bret Baier was an implosion, or that Joe Biden's performance, which is what we were talking about here, that literally was so bad that it forced him out of the race, which you're saying that if my friend's saying Joe Biden's crushing it and I'm saying this is a disaster for Biden, the truth is that it wasn't that Biden was crushing it or that it was a disaster for Biden. It was somewhere in between. Feel free to call in. Go ahead, Dave Timmerman. So Dave Timmerman's belief here is one of the probably the most disastrous debate performance ever, that literally forced Joe Biden to be forced out of the race. If you were to say it's a disaster for Biden, and the person next to you was to say this is a slam dunk for Biden, both would be wrong. That's Dave Timmerman. That's anytime two people say something, the truth is always somewhere in between. If one person says 2 + 2 is 4, and the following person says actually 2 + 2 is 6, then the truth must be that 2 + 2 is in fact 5. It must be in between what the two people say. You see, I'm above the fray. I'm not partisan. I understand. I'm outside of the bias, and I understand that actually the truth always belies in between of what two people are speaking. I don't really have opinions myself or an ability to defend anything I'm saying. I merely know that I will listen to two people that disagree on something and go, I am ahead of either of you, for I can intuit that both of you make incorrect and correct points, and therefore the truth must lie somewhere in between. Literally, as worthless of a take that you could imagine. But feel free, Dave Timmerman, the floor is yours. If you would like to call in and tell me how incorrect I am that the Joe Biden debate performance that was arguably the most disastrous debate performance of all time that literally forced him out of the race was not a disaster. It was not a big victory for him, nor a disaster. Feel free to call in. I would love to. In fact, I think it would be a very impressive display of your rhetorical abilities and your intelligence if you're able to argue this position. Feel free. Like to call in, Dave? Me thinks he won't be calling in to defend that position. So tired of it. This is so dumb. It's always been one of the biggest pet peeves of mine. He ain't calling. Might as well just move on with the show. We know he's not. Nope. I got a message. Who could it be from? Thanks, Tengo. Sorry, I was just reading something there. Yeah, I know, he's just trolling. But it's, and again, that's one of the things, that's another effective troll that people will use. Well, both sides are making good points, but... Debate tomfoolery tonight. On what? Tom wants to call in, he can call in, I'll debate him. Dave's on notice. No, I wouldn't go that far. I'm not putting people on notice. Did Dave say that? So, Dave, what you're claiming is you weren't saying that about Joe Biden. You were saying it about my discussion of Mike Flynn. That the truth was somewhere in between, that it was no big deal at all versus it was treason. Sure, you could call in and debate that as well, if that's what you're thinking. If you want to argue that actually, that the truth is between the 302 of Flynn showed that there was basically not a big deal there versus it was treason, and the truth is somewhere in between, I'll happily debate you on that as well. Cool. Calling in? You want to debate about that? Can you name me one other time in history, or recent history we'll say, where the DOJ has decided to prosecute the incoming national security advisor or anyone of prominence in an executive position like that because they said, I don't recall? Can you name me one case? Could have happened, but I don't remember. Can you name me one case ever? You get on that. Do your homework. Come up with that answer. Because they've never done it, they should never do it. We got another one. Austrian Painter, would you like to call in? I'd be happy to talk to you. Austrian Painter is this. The selective prosecution that we see through agencies like the DOJ to point out how it's being selectively enforced is actually erroneous, because that would intuit that we're saying that the things they're prosecuting should always be able to be gotten away with because they haven't prosecuted others. But the truth is, at some point we need to start prosecuting them. For example, I was looking at a case the other day in the 1930s in the Jim Crow South, and I happened to notice that racist police departments there were only arresting black people for the crime of jaywalking. Now, even though the data seemed to strongly suggest that there were actually more white people at higher percentage that were jaywalking and were allowed to get away with it over and over again. They seemed to only arrest black people. And when the townsfolk spoke up and said, this seems to be selective enforcement, and it actually seems to be that it's racist and it is driven by a political agenda, that you're only going after people for cultural or political reasons that you disagree with. What my take was, but did they jaywalk? Just because they've decided not to prosecute the white people doesn't mean that the black man did not jaywalk. And so therefore it would be erroneous to talk about the double standard that we see from these sorts of things. And we would say that jaywalking is in fact a big deal. After all, those laws are put there for a reason. It's very good, Austrian Painter. Of course, if you feel that I'm maligning you and unfairly articulating what your position would be, feel free to call in. I've been trying to chum someone in to call in and disagree with me all night. So I'd be more than happy to allow you to call in. Yes, I still believe Kamala is winning. Every time you talk about the blatant double standard and the weaponization of these institutions, you get these big brain people, well, now's the time. So it's like, okay, failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. Paul Manafort commits that crime. Literally in the indictment, it says he committed that crime with the Podesta group. That's the group that was formed by Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. No problem. If we decide finally this FARA law that we never prosecute, or very rarely prosecute, now we're going to start prosecuting it. Fine. Kevin, would you like to call in? I'll answer your question happily if you would like to call in. Spamming the same question over and over again, designed to elicit some sort of response that you think will be some sort of gotcha, isn't something that I'm really in the mood to do. If you'd like to call in and have this conversation, you could do so. Trump wasn't forced to act for criminal immunity. He was arguing a legal theory that has been one that has been presented quite frequently that says that presidents have immunity for actions that they take while they're in office. This was true, for example, of Barack Obama. For example, if someone would have decided to prosecute Barack Obama for ordering a strike on an American citizen that executed them, would you have been saying, aha, Obama had to ask for immunity? Ha ha ha! What does that mean? Yes, that would be true. In that case, Obama would bring up the fact that he would say, I have immunity. I'm asking for immunity as the chief executive, that as a president, I'm allowed to do certain things. You're trying to intuit, because that's what occurred, that implies that Trump committed some sort of crime and was only left off the hook because he was president. That's not what's occurring. He is arguing the correct legal theory that for many of these things, presidents have a different set of immunity than what the average people were. If you would like to call in and talk about any of those specific cases that you think warranted Trump being guilty, that he had to talk about immunity, I would be more than happy to have you do that. But you'll be a coward and won't do so, and so we'll move on from there, clearly seeing through the games that you're trying to do. Dave Timmerman says Michael Flynn is not charged with treason. He pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI and his talks about a Russian ambassador, but was later pardoned by Trump. I would argue that lying's not a big deal in the context that we see people that lie all the time and they're not charged for things, particularly mainstream politicians, so it still wouldn't rise to the level of what I would consider a big deal. Second, he pled guilty because they threatened to go after his child, which is why he pled guilty. He later rescinded that. Even the DOJ dropped those charges because they realized there was nothing to it. Unfortunately, the political judge decided that he had an axe to grind, and even when the DOJ dropped the charges, he would not allow the charges to be dropped, which, before having an arduous process that would have went through that the DOJ didn't even want to prosecute, and that this judge was going to drag out as long as possible, that then would have ended up in appeals court, Trump did pardon him. What does it matter, Kevin? Isn't it true? Yes or no, Kevin? If there would have been a prosecutor that brought a charge against Obama for executing an American citizen without due process, wouldn't he have asked for immunity? That's it. Yes or no? Would he have asked for immunity? Yes, he would have. So your gotcha question means nothing. But they're different, right? They don't like to call in. I don't know if you've noticed that. Anyways, where were we before we were sidetracked by all of the big brain? But both sides do it. So Kamala Harris got absolutely destroyed in the debate, or in the interview last night. Also, one of the things I love is you can see all the time people like me, and it's a mistake I made, again, erroneously assuming that the people that you're arguing against will have even the smallest amount of good faith. So I'll say things like this all the time. You know, if we ever saw, for example, Trump's team use unverified opposition research that they came up with, then sycophants in the FBI that wanted an insurance policy against his opponent used that unverified opposition research to spy on his opponent, you people would go nuts. How dare you, they say. How dare you? You don't know that. You don't know that at all. You don't know that at all. You don't know that. And then you'll see these people like Pisco, Rob, you must condemn that Trump would try to get FISA warrants on it. You have to condemn. That would be disastrous if he did it. Or we see left-wing riots all the time, political riots. I said, when the right does this, you people lose your mind. You don't know that. You don't know. Then the right does one and they're like, oh. Or when we saw almost all of social media companies lean left-wing and lean towards pro-establishment. That's okay. They're private companies. Now it's Elon Musk. Oh, this is outrageous. And then, of course, in this situation, all of the adversarial press that Donald Trump's had to face for 8 years, almost every venue he goes on, even when he goes on Fox News. Even then, adversarial press. And not just Trump, most of his surrogates, heck, even most Republicans. They go on Meet the Press, they go on 60 Minutes. They're not getting things edited favorably for them, completely changing questions like Kamala Harris. They're not getting a press that fawns over them like Joe Biden or Barack Obama. They're getting shouted at. They want to do a press conference on a new economic strategy they have. What's the press do? Screams, why won't you condemn David Duke? Why did it take you 3 days to condemn white supremacy? I didn't. I condemn white supremacy. There you have it. Now you see Austrian Painter. Big. Actually, Rob, what you can see is both sides are equally guilty of this at all the time. When you say the left does these things and pro-establishment people do these things, it is also true vis-a-vis the fact that we understand the right would behave in the exact same behavior. And so therefore, only people like me are above the fray. It is true that both sides do this in equal components. Wow. You guys are nailing it today. Woo, baby. By the way, you can still call in Austrian Painter. I get it, though. You don't have access to a phone. You don't have access to a computer. We get it. I know all the excuses. So, for year after year after year after year, 8 years of adversarial press with Trump, Kamala Harris has to do one interview in front of Bret Baier, and they're like, this is outrageous. Just a few weeks ago, when we saw the terrible bias moderation against Donald Trump by ABC, the left laughed at it. Oh, they were just fact-checking lies. Oh, stop complaining about it. And now, with one adversarial interview with Bret Baier, they lose their minds. Go ahead, Austrian Painter. Let me make your argument for you. Since you're mailing it in, I'll do it for you. But what you could see, Rob, is both sides do this. And we could see that if Donald Trump would do an interview on Fox News with, like, Bret Baier, he would never interrupt him or be as contentious as he was with Kamala Harris. It just wouldn't happen. I'm glad you bring that up, Austrian Painter. Let's go to the tape, shall we? So with all the gnashing of the teeth about, she went in there and she's brave and she stood up against this madman, Bret Baier, who's just in the tank for Donald Trump. And he would never interrupt Donald Trump like that. Let's see last year, the last time that Donald Trump was on with Bret Baier, how that exchange went. See if you noticed any interruptions. Ready?
I won in 2020.
You know that this,
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, this was a very rigged election.
Are you going to go, this is how you're going to tell that independent suburban woman voter to vote for you?
We're off to winning an election, and I think we're winning very well. All corrupt stuff, Brett.
Understand about the Hunter Biden,
no, but
all
that's cheating
fair
on the
things.
election.
But
that's cheating on the election.
you lost the 2020 election.
Brett, intelligence agents.
There were recounts in all of the swing states. There was not significant widespread
We're trying
fraud.
to get recounts, real recounts.
There were
Not just numbers of votes
widespread
cast.
corruption. There was not a sense of that.
Money gets offered to people, and some people change.
But
I will
people
say
on that
this,
list that are not taking money that decided that they're not
for the most
supporting
part,
you.
they are. You know, please, could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
because they have no. We
They
were
did
talking.
ask for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
"Can you
them
give the
some,
documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And in
But
all
why not
fairness,
just hand them over then?
Because I fired him, and he has great hatred, and that's okay, because some people do, and
says
some
he
people love
resigned.
me very much. He didn't resign. I asked him, give me a letter immediately. There were many things. I would say
Iran war
much more, not that I know of. Nixon had it. Carter had
Their
it. The
argument
Bushes
is that
had
these
it.
are super sensitive national security documents. All right, so here's,
I'm sure you'll
this
see
is-
real super sensitive that Biden has, because
This is-
Biden has far more than anybody's ever kept.
And he turned them over when asked.
No, he
but-
didn't.
but
He
that's
still
what he
hasn't given
says.
the 1,850 boxes. I had lots of paper. I had copies of newspaper articles. I had copies of magazines.
I know.
I
This
had
is
copies of
specifically a
everything.
quote. You're quoted
And-
on the
I know,
recording
and
saying the document was secret, adding that you could have declassified it while you were president.
When I'm not president, I can't declassify.
And that's what you said. You didn't
I said
declassify it.
that. I said no. I said I couldn't.
could have
but that wasn't a
declassified it.
document, Brett. An article.
I'm just saying what the indictment says.
Well,
the
these
recording
people-
and the
look,
people in the room who
These
testified.
people are very dishonest people. They're thugs. These are thugs.
The
These are
suggestion
dishonest
was that
people.
you wanted this as evidence that the military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley,
I never ordered it to happen. No.
but that's
No.
why you wanted the document.
I don't think I've ever seen a document from Milley.
Why do you want to hold on to those documents after you're president?
I don't say I do.
You just didn't know
We
what
were
was in the boxes?
discussing with NARA that the president has every right to keep whatever he wants, and that includes me.
And the question
This
is
was
whether
not a criminal case. Let me tell
highly
you-
classified government national security documents fall in that
I
category,
think-
and that battle is going to be fought in the courts.
It's already been fought.
You're facing obviously a number of potential charges in other cases, and I know you've said that
All
you
Democratic-
believe that they're political
Of course,
witch hunts.
of course.
But what do you say to the voter who really liked many of your policies,
They still do.
but they can't handle the scandals or the controversies or the name calling or the vitriol? What do you say to that voter who's worried that that all leads to a general election loss?
Wow, but Bret Baier, man, he would never interrupt Trump like that. He wouldn't do that. No. He wouldn't interrupt like that if it was Donald Trump. That's strange. Pushing back, saying, no, you're wrong. Actually, let's go to the source. This is what it says. Showing videos. I'll say this one more time just to illustrate the absurdity of this. Our legal system is premised on the idea that we have equal application of the law. This is particularly true when it talks about sort of going after political figures. It's why we very rarely see political figures or leaders that are gone after with lawfare. This is the same discussion Kevin's having, and the other people in the chat, that I had with Brianna Wu when I talked. Brianna Wu says, of course, that's true. We would like to see a very high threshold before we start to prosecute political figures because it would be easy for it to get out of hand. Something that I agree with. That's why I said, for example, I did not cheer for the fact, I was okay with the fact that Hillary's team wasn't charged with mishandling of classified documents. I'm fine with Joe Biden not being charged with mishandling of classified documents. What I have a problem with is that Donald Trump was charged with the mishandling of classified documents. Now, with Hillary's team, I think the person that intentionally deleted subpoenaed evidence should have been charged, and we should have found out whether that order came from on high or not. But as far as the mishandling, the truth is, because this occurs over and over again in Washington, to only selectively go after one side is a bigger sin than the crime itself. Much like the idea of going after sort of the jaywalkers that are only black. Jaywalking is a serious crime, I guess, but a bigger crime would be having a weaponized police force that is only going after people that they have an axe to grind with. That is particularly true when you're talking at the highest level of politics. It is a foundational principle of which our legal system relies on. The people that are fine with that corruption and that two-tiered system will always say that when you point out that this is being selectively applied by institutions that we have been told by people like Chuck Schumer that would openly go after Donald Trump, by people like James Comey, by people like Letitia James, by people like Peter Strzok talking about an insurance policy to stop Trump, all of these officials at the high level of law enforcement in this country that are open about their hatred of Donald Trump, when you can see that it's being selectively applied against Trump and his allies, and similar, if not worse, crimes are being left off the hook for the people that are Trump's opponents, you can see that that's a far bigger problem than anything Trump's accused of. But the way that you get out of that, because really you're too much of a coward to say what you really feel, which is that you're fine with that selective application, and that's true of people like Kevin here. They're absolutely fine with that two-tiered system because in reality, it's benefiting what they want. And so instead of talking about that two-tier system and the problems with it, they'll say, you can't point to the two-tier application. Instead, you must look at each situation in a vacuum. And so they don't want to talk about whether or not Barack Obama did something or whether or not Hillary Clinton did something or whether or not Joe Biden did something. All of that's off the table. And to bring it up is what aboutism. So you can't talk about that. Instead, you must only look at what Trump said in the vacuum. You must look at the legal statutes and you must say, technically, could this be a violation of the legal statute? If which case is true, then he should be held to the standard that the legal statute recommends, which means that the charges against him are okay. They won't want to talk about, okay, but Joe Biden did something even more blatant. He did so for longer. That's whataboutism. That's whataboutism. That's whataboutism. And I've debated, for example, people like Connor and others. I don't know if Connor specifically said this, but I debate people that talk about this quite frequently. And they always act like, well, now, just because it hasn't been done before, now's the time to start doing this. Okay, and I say predictably what will happen is, even if we would acquiesce to this and say, fine, we're now going to interpret these statutes very stringently, and we're going to say, fine, it's time for Donald Trump to be jailed, send him to prison for the rest of his life. This is clearly a huge deal. Now we've stopped Donald Trump from ever being president again. He'll be dead in Rikers, yay. But now we're going to start prosecuting politicians. Only they won't. Only the next time that it's a Democrat, they won't do it. And then where will people like Kevin be? They'll be like, well, it's fine. They won't care. They won't raise their voice and go, wow, Rob told me this is exactly what would happen. And here it is. It's what's happening. And I can't believe they're getting away with it. He'll go on to talk about the next thing. That's what will happen. These people are transparent in their hatred of Donald Trump and their cheering of the two-tiered system. And they try to couch it in, well, I'm just the centrist, and I'm just saying it's unfair to look at any two situations. We must only look at the things in a vacuum against Donald Trump and ignore the fact that it's being applied in a way that's grotesquely two-tiered. That's who they are. That is the foundational understanding of what our legal system should be, that it should be equal application. It shouldn't be selectively used to go after people that you have differences with, particularly political differences. And how that's a far greater threat than, for example, any interference we could have from a country like Iran, or interference we could have from a country like Russia, or interference from a country like China. Our FBI, for example, and top prosecutors in this country that are weaponizing the most powerful law enforcement agency in the history of the world to selectively go after the candidates and the politicians that are critical of those very agencies mean that we don't live in a democracy, that your voice doesn't matter, that there will only be candidates and politicians that will acquiesce to these agencies like the FBI. That's why so many politicians were afraid of J. Edgar Hoover, because he was breaking the law to get all of this dirt on them. Kevin would have been right there with J. Edgar Hoover, said whatever he's doing is fine, he's law enforcement, no problem. You're not allowed to say what he's done that's incorrect or that he's only selectively going after people. That's how these people are. Kevin then goes to but Rob, I'm just a neophyte. I'm just getting into politics. I'll condemn bad behavior wherever I see it. Now, Kevin says that I defaulted to whataboutism with Barack Obama when he brought up Trump. And that's because he said, this was Kevin trying to come in, right? Well, this is straight up lefty. This isn't even the centrist. Isn't it true that Donald Trump had to ask for criminal immunity? He had to ask, can you imagine that? A president saying, I have immunity? He said that, Sal. And what he wants you to believe is, so if he asks for immunity, that shows that he's guilty. Only a guilty person would ask for immunity. So Donald Trump did something really horrible. He did something really horrible. That's why he asked for immunity. That's clearly. And I was like, well, no. That's stupid. That assertion's dumb, because there are all sorts of times where people will ask for immunity, such as Barack Obama could have asked for immunity if he would have been charged with ordering an assassination against an American citizen in a terrorist strike. So the idea that that implies some sort of guilt, no one would have thought that way then. They would have said, of course, presidents clearly have a level of immunity. That's certainly true. You may disagree on what that level is, but the idea that a president asked for it, and therefore that somehow implies their guilt, is nonsensical. And of course, Kevin defaults to, but see, that's whataboutism. That shows how bad faith Rob is. That's whataboutism. The fact that he brought up Obama, see? No, because you should know this as someone who's now defaulting to when I point out how you're a fan of this two-tier system, and you go, oh, it's not that I'm a fan of the two-tier system. I'm new to politics. I'll call out any bad thing. I'll call it out. And then I could go through example after example, right? And say, okay, well, here's an example. And you'd say, yeah, I guess that's what, and this is exactly what Brianna Wu did. So in the first panel I was in with Brianna Wu, with Destiny, etc., when we were specifically talking, the question brought forth by the moderator, Connor, at that point was, is this classified document case against Trump a strong case? Or is it a further example of a two-tier system? That was sort of the topic. And when I talked about Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified documents and how they literally destroyed subpoenaed evidence, and the FBI had them dead to rights, a clear case as obstruction of justice as you'll ever see, and they let them off the hook. They gave everyone immunity and said, we're not going to charge anyone. What did Brianna default to? The same thing Kevin would do. Kevin would say, oh, I guess that's bad. I guess, okay, they should have charged her. I guess they should have charged her. Right, the stakes are done now. They're done. Yep, I guess they should have charged her. They didn't. Oh, well, time to move forward. Let's throw Trump in jail. And then the next time, when Joe Biden mishandles classified documents and they don't charge him, he'll ignore it as it occurs. And then years in the future, when you're like, look how the FBI allowed Joe Biden. Yeah, I guess that was bad. They should have charged him. Oh, well, they didn't. They should have. And you can't talk about the two-tier system. You can't. That's always whataboutism. I said they should have charged him and they didn't. Oh, well, time to move on. It's the same shit. It's the same shit. And then a new level, I will say that it's interesting that I've never seen someone blatantly do this is, but I'm just new to politics. I'm just new to politics. That's a new one. To jump in with both feet like that. That's true, Mr. White. They don't care about the mishandling of classified documents. They don't care at all. They don't. Many of these churches, they don't care that Trump overvalued his property that resulted in him having a loan from a bank that he paid back with interest that the bank was okay with. They don't give a shit about that. They don't care at all. They just care about it's Trump, get him. They don't care about the fact that he paid hush money to Stormy Daniels and that they had this convoluted way of saying that that's 37 felonies through a novel legal theory that has never been applied to anyone else. Even though we know specifically that in the same jurisdiction, Hillary Clinton's team did violate campaign finance laws, so says the FCC, which would have meant that she had fraudulent documents, which is the exact same charge that Donald Trump got. The only difference is her case was more blatant. The feds weighed in and admitted that it was more blatant, and yet there wasn't even an investigation by Alvin Bragg in New York. Why? Kevin doesn't care. He'd say, but that's whataboutism. That's whataboutism. Oh, someone's giving memberships. I'm so sorry. Who was it? Who gave it? Whoever donated a membership. Thank you so much. John Beard. Thank you. No, they don't care about actively trying to hide documents from NARA. We know, for example, that Joe Biden actively tried to hide documents from NARA. We have him on... First off, we know that his ghostwriter intentionally destroyed audio tapes once he knew that there was going to be a special counsel. That's actively trying to hide documents from an investigator. You don't give a shit. I know you don't care. You don't care at all, Austrian Painter. Kevin doesn't care. The Democrats don't care about that. Second, we know from the transcripts that were then recoverable, what we know is that Joe Biden admitted that he had classified documents when he's talking to that ghostwriter in 2018, 2019, or whenever it was around then. We know that he never handed them over, which meant that he knew that he was obligated to hand that over. He intentionally didn't do it, so he was actively hiding. You don't give a shit about that. Kevin didn't give a shit about that. Democrats didn't give a shit about that. None of you cared. They do not care. And let me be clear, if even one of these court cases were designed for political purposes and were fraudulently executed, such as the Alvin Bragg 37 felonies, that is more of a case of election interference and worse than any single thing Trump was accused of doing. And that is exactly what happened. Even if one of these cases would be legit, the fact that they'll throw a litany of cases against him over and over and over again for political reasons, which it's blatant to anyone who's even remotely trying to pay attention, shows just how corrupt this system is, and they're using lawfare to try to influence an election. We see it right now with Jack Smith. Oh, that's cool, JoJo. Austrian Painter, why hasn't Jack Smith then decided that he's going to prosecute Hillary Clinton's team? It wasn't that they had classified documents, it was that they destroyed subpoenaed evidence. Trump's team's accused by Jack Smith of trying to hide documents, which eventually the government recovered. In the case of Hillary Clinton's team, they literally destroyed subpoenaed evidence, which were not recoverable. Why were no charges filed? If it's very concerning. Can you explain that to me? Can you explain to me why the FBI... Thank you, Gizmo, for the cheer. Can you explain to me why the FBI didn't think that was serious? It's not the having classified documents. It's the fact that they tried to conceal. Can you explain to me? No, Biden, why did Biden need to be... There's another question. So yes, we know the never-Trumper that was running NARA that said the day that Trump left office that he wanted to investigate the documents that he was taking. Yes, imagine that. Just for a second think that there was a corrupt institution, that these people were corrupt, that NARA was like, we're only going to go after the people we dislike like Donald Trump. Then you would say that he has to, even though he was complying with many of the things they ordered, including letting them search Mar-a-Lago many times, you would say, that's perfectly fine. He must comply to their whims at all time, no matter what they say, and if he doesn't, therefore he is guilty. But if NARA never asked Joe Biden for the documents, even if Joe Biden knew that he had classified documents, and even if he knew he wasn't supposed to have them, well, that's no problem. It's no problem because NARA never asked him. Bullshit. No, the Austrian Painter, no. The documents were subpoenaed by Congress, and then they were destroyed. So, Austrian Painter, I await with bated breath. If you think that, like law enforcement, like Jack Smith and the FBI, that's what they take so seriously. It's the trying to be shady about the documents. Not that you took them home, but the trying to be shady. Okay, did Trump's team destroy subpoenaed evidence? No, he didn't. They're accused of sliding some boxes around. But those documents were eventually returned. Can you explain to me if this is something that's taken very seriously and that Jack Smith and the FBI and Democrats take seriously? Why were they okay with Hillary's team destroying subpoenaed evidence? More blatant obstruction of justice than anything Trump's accused of, and yet no accountability. None. And when it occurred, they just said, it's no big deal. Who cares? Can you explain that? Yeah, imagine if Trump's team would have lit those documents on fire. Imagine the outrage. I have no problem. If we decide that we're going to aggressively prosecute everyone in Washington that mishandles classified documents, I'm cool with that. I don't really like almost anyone in Washington. That would probably result in 80 to 90% of the people going to jail there. Thumbs up. Good by me. If we decide we're going to prosecute people for FARA violations, fine by me. I think there is too much foreign influence in our governmental systems. The problem is it's one of the worst kept secrets that we know this occurs all throughout Washington. And yet we're only going after people connected to Trump's team. If we're going to prosecute people investigate people for potential Logan Act violations because they were Mike Flynn was communicating with his counterpart when he was the incoming national security advisor after his team already won the election, no problem. If we decide we're going to prosecute that sort of thing, fine. But then you have to go after John Kerry, and you have to go off after every incoming administration that does the same thing. Fine, throw them all in jail. Cool by me. But we don't. Look at how Austrian Painter squirms. So Austrian Painter first says, oh, it's the hiding. It's the being shady about the documents that's the problem. I'm like, well, Hillary's team did worse. They deleted subpoenaed evidence. He goes, well, didn't they delete them before they were subpoenaed? No, they didn't. One, even if they did, totally irrelevant, because that would show that they knew that they still delete. We'll skip that argument, right? But it turns out he was wrong. Actually, they deleted them after they were subpoenaed. Now he goes on to the next excuse. Well, they planned on deleting them before they were subpoenaed. So therefore, the FBI didn't think it was a big deal. There you go. So if the FBI ever subpoenas anything from you and you destroy it, and they say, wait a minute, you can't destroy subpoenaed evidence, and your wife goes, actually, I told him to destroy that stuff months ago. They'll say, oh, no problem. See, I sent Rob an email months ago and said, make sure you throw everything in the garage away. So he threw away those documents you were looking for that were in the garage. Right? The FBI will say, oh, of course, no problem. What does the fact that they had planned to delete subpoenaed evidence before it was subpoenaed have anything to do with it was subpoenaed, they knew it was subpoenaed, and they still deleted it? There you go. Now, do you see the people like Austrian? Well, clearly they didn't delete it because it was subpoenaed. They planned on deleting it beforehand. So therefore, the FBI didn't think it was a big deal. There you have it. Does everyone see the caliber of people that we argue against? Do you see the hoops they'll jump? These are the centrists. These are the moderates. Do you see? Well, in that case, of course, they recovered everything they were looking for Trump, but they need to throw the book at Trump. That's serious. Trying to withhold information, not complying, that's serious. But if they would have submitted, imagine the argument Austrian Painter would be making right now. If Trump's team had evidence, right, that said, hey, all those if Trump would have sent an email out, was like, burn all the shit in the garage. And then NARA would have said, hey man, we think you have stuff in your garage we want access to. We're coming next week. And then Trump's team would have said, oh shit, we were supposed to burn that stuff and we didn't. Let's burn it now. Now that we know it's subpoenaed, but we don't give a shit. We were supposed to burn it 2 months ago. Do you think even for 1 second that Jack Smith would have said, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough? Do you think the Democrats would have been like, perfectly reasonable? They planned on burning that shit before it was asked for, before it was officially subpoenaed. Do you think Austrian Painter would say, yeah, perfectly reasonable? That's who these people are. It's always a justification for the double standard. Every single time. That's what's going on with this Kamala Harris. One time she faces an adversarial press and they lose their minds. There you have it. And he's actually putting LMAO, like he's got some, yeah! The reason that there are rules and regulations on not having a private server is because all of this stuff is subject to a Freedom of Information Act request. It is not their documents. It's supposed to be part of the public record, of the congressional record. My strong suspicion is the reason that Hillary Clinton had a private server was to keep shit private so that it couldn't be publicly seen or requested for Freedom of Information Act records. The fact that they themselves said, delete this shit, which would again be covering up. And because they said, we have to take their word for it, that they said, delete all of this stuff. But they didn't, and then it was subpoenaed. They knew it was subpoenaed. They knew it's illegal to destroy subpoenaed evidence, and they did it anyways. And your argument is, Well, that's okay, because the fact that they suggested at one point covering this shit up in the first place so people couldn't see it by deleting it means that they're justified and not criminal to deleting it after it was subpoenaed is laughable. Airborne Animal, thanks for the $10 super chat. As if maintaining classified and returning documents is not important at all. Right. That's right, Emily A. They knew the documents were subpoenaed. It doesn't matter. It is not a legal defense. I'm telling you. Go ahead and try it. If you ever get a document subpoenaed by the FBI, and then after it's subpoenaed, you intentionally destroy it, you know that it's subpoenaed, and you intentionally destroy it, I challenge you for your defense to be, but I planned on destroying it before it was subpoenaed. I challenge you to have that defense and see how far it gets you. And yet, the shills will come in and say, oh, it's reasonable. It's reasonable. Anyways, we got off on a tangent there, talk about allowing people to control the narrative. But that's what's going on with, and it'll be the same thing. What I've always said is, I'm for equal standards. It is clear mens rea. Knowing that something's subpoenaed, knowing it's against the law to destroy the subpoenaed documents and destroying them anyway is clear mens rea. If 1/1000th of the scrutiny was put on Democrats that it was on Trump's team, these people will lose their minds. In fact, you see them. They're already running on Trump's going to weaponize law enforcement to go after us. They're afraid that the very tactics that they have used against their opponents will be used against them. Even just a fraction of it. They can't tolerate it. They can't accept that. They fully expect the press to be on their side at all times. It's not enough that 90% of the mainstream media is in the bag for them. Almost every interview Kamala Harris did was people that were sycophantic towards her. It's not enough. It must be 100%, or it's not fair. It's brutal. That's not true at all, Austrian Painter. You are absolutely incorrect. If you are aware that something has been subpoenaed and you are aware that it's illegal to delete it, you are not then required to be found, to be charged, to say, but the reason I deleted it was because it was subpoenaed. It is sufficient to prove that you knew it was subpoenaed and you knew that you had to hand those records over and you did not. Saying, but I deleted it for other reasons is not a defense. And by the way, it's bullshit and a lie. He knows Emily A. He's just a shill. And so if Trump comes into office and they decide, well, we're going to start going after Democrats. We're going to go after schools that promote things like they went after parents at school board meetings. My God, they will lose their minds. I'm fine with an adversarial press. I think there are times that the press went over the line with Trump. But in general, like what you saw with Bret Baier there interviewing Trump, I'm fine with that. There might be times that you're like, maybe a little too aggressive. But in general, I would rather have an adversarial press. I want a press that's not comfy cozy with the people in positions of power. I want them holding their feet to the fire. The problem is we don't have that. We have a press that's not really a press. They're just propagandists. They'll hold Trump's feet to the fire. They'll hold Vance's feet to the fire. But they're not going to hold Kamala Harris. They're not going to hold Joe Biden. They did. Now Austrian Painter changes his argument. You have to establish that those who deleted it knew about the subpoena. If you have a large team ordered it months ago, reasonable doubt in the deletion was... No, they absolutely have it. Read the IG report. They absolutely had. Paul Combetta, the guy who deleted it, admitted that he knew it was deleted. He had a meeting with Cheryl Mills days before he deleted it. He admitted that he knew that material was subpoenaed, but he was driving to work and he had a, quote, oh shit moment where he remembered that before that stuff was subpoenaed months ago, he recalled a conversation he had with Cheryl Mills asking him to delete it. Now, to my knowledge, there is no evidence that that ever occurred, that Cheryl Mills personally talked to him and said that he was supposed to delete this document. There might have been an email that went out, but I can't remember. But he admitted that he knew it was subpoenaed. Dead to rights. He admitted it. And in fact, seeing as how he was like only one of 2 or 3 people that were tasked with saving these documents, he absolutely would have been well aware that there was a public subpoena issued for these very documents that he was tasked with dealing with. So notice how Austrian Painter literally changes his argument. Well, there's so many people that would be involved. We don't know that the person that deleted them knew about the subpoenas. Yes, we do. The IG report blatantly says that the FBI knew about it. Now he goes right back to the same argument. Well, that he knew about the subpoena and did it because of the subpoena. It's laughable. These people are laughable. Bach, even people like Pisco admit this is clear-cut criminal behavior. It's just, unfortunately, they gave him immunity. So there's nothing they could do. It's not the same argument. It's 2 different arguments. One argument saying that if you are aware of a subpoena and delete subpoenaed material, it's okay as long as you plan to delete that material for other reasons. Therefore, it's not a crime. It hasn't proven mens rea. That's ludicrous. That's laughable. The other argument is, but he didn't know there was a subpoena because there was many people that would have been involved, so that specific person may not have known about a subpoena. That is a completely different argument. That argument is erroneous. That's not what occurred in this situation. Now, when pointed out, you say, no, it's the same argument. It's not. You can't even argue coherently on this point. Even if you're listening and you don't understand the ins and outs of this, you understand those are 2 completely different arguments. One is, the dude didn't know there was a subpoena. The other is, the dude knew there was a subpoena, but he planned on deleting the stuff for reasons other than the subpoena. So even after he knew the subpoena existed, he deleted it for those other reasons, and that's legitimate. Think of what Austrian Painter said, just in case you're curious about this. That would mean it would be sufficient for every business in this country to have as a policy, we plan on, just public policy, we plan every month to delete every record we have. Put that out there. Then they don't do it. But if any law enforcement ever subpoenas them, they could literally delete the subpoenaed material after it's subpoenaed and say, but look, our policy says we delete every month. We forgot. We saved that stuff for 5 years and forgot to delete it until you subpoenaed it. And then we were like, all right, we planned on deleting this, so we're going to delete it now. And Austrian Painter would say, yep, perfectly legitimate. As long as they planned on deleting it, they have in writing, they planned on deleting all of this stuff. It is not the same argument, Austrian Painter, as I just made. The argument of he was unaware of a subpoena is different than the argument he was aware of the subpoena but deleted it for other reasons. 2 different arguments. I know I'm being baited, but I enjoy this. I enjoy the back and forth and proving how bad faith and dumb these people are. But all right, people are bored with it. Let's do a little of this. We're an hour and 57 minutes in, so we'll go for like another half hour. Now, one of the things I did want to do a debate really bad tonight, so this was a cheap imitation, arguing with people online, but I appreciate it. For all I know, Austrian Painter is a big supporter of me, and who's a big Trump supporter. He was like, well, let's give Rob what he wants. Crucible crew up in here, yeah. Here's what we'll do, since I'm shilling for money, because I'm broke as a joke. We will do 2-minute videos. Here's a segment we've done once before. I think there was some people that enjoyed it. Here's what happens. If you give any sort of super chat donation whatsoever and request my thoughts on something, I will do this. No, let's leave this one up. Or maybe I should take that off too. And I'll say blah 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 blah, and I'll do a little 2-minute video on it. I'll record that, and then I will upload that 2-minute video onto YouTube at some point. Any topic that's within terms of service would be something that we'll allow. We'll go at a maximum half hour for this. Now, I know people are asking questions, and I do answer questions almost all the time when they're being asked. But I will shill for money right now, and so I'll only be addressing the questions that are given through Super Chat. What say you? I guess I will address it. You got to Super Chat it. You got to Super Chat it. I will answer this one for free. Am I still dating Pisco? I still like Pisco. I'm not butthurt like him. I get that he's a little... he gets... Like, it's so funny to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm an old-fashioned guy, right? But I'm the type of guy that, like, when you're hanging out with your buddies and they're like, yeah, F you, you fat mother effer, blah, 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 blah. It's okay with me, right? Oh! Pisco's the kind of guy that'll dish it out, but he can't take it. So it's just stupid. Anyways, Tengo, I wanted to play this video for you. You're mentioned in it. It's a little short, I did, just before I came on here. So I hope you all will enjoy this. One of the cool things about having a channel and help if I bring it up, huh? All right. One of the cool things about having a channel and a politics show is just all the kind words and support I get from people, whether it be in real life or online. This book, Nuclear War, was sent to me by a great fan of the show, Tengoat. He sent me some kind messages with it, so thank you so much, Tengoat. Look forward to reading this. Hopefully after the election, we can start reading it here. And then I also received this from someone in real life, someone that I know who knows I have a show and I'm a Trump supporter. It is a beautiful coin with Trump that says "Make America Great Again," and then if you flip it over, it's got the famous defiant after the assassination pose of Trump yelling "Fight." Really incredible. So thank everyone for your generosity. Your support means a lot to me. Special thanks to the people that send me donations, whether it be financial or gifts such as this, and all of your kind words. I really appreciate it a lot, and I know I should speak more kindly to all of you more often, but really from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It means a lot. Yeah, so thank you, Tengo. The person in real life that I know, I don't know if they want me saying their name, but thank you to them who sent me that Trump coin. Very cool. So that'll be going on my collection here of sort of political artifacts and what have that I have. One of the things I have, this is a bummer, because it fell. I believe my man Hank is partially responsible for this. It broke the frame, but there's a guy named Pete the Patriot who had a quiz, a question one day, and the winner won this. This is a piece of wire fence from the demilitarized zone in the Koreas. I thought that was cool. So, and Tengoat sent me that book, so hopefully I get time to read that. All right, Super Chats. Thanks, by the way, we got to 100 likes. Thank you. I know I saw some Super Chats. Let's see. Nothing political so far. Dave Timmerman, for $6, says, you should do a lefty, inverse hat, centrist, googly glasses, and right-wing loon. Normal Rob Shorts. I should. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll start doing that. I read that wrong, and I thought you said Rob Shorts, and I thought you meant like having my shorts way pulled up so like I look like this. All three together or something. But no, I'm going to do that. Contemporary Compendium. I'm assuming you don't want me to do a YouTube video on that. Ask, what is my favorite meal, my favorite drink, my favorite dessert? Okay. My favorite meal, I don't know. It's hard to say specifically. In general, I would say my wife's meatloaf is near the top. My favorite meals my wife makes for me is meatloaf, and then she makes like whole potatoes, baby potatoes that are small that she cuts in half and sort of fries. And then usually we'll have that with something like a grilled asparagus. I fucking love that meal. She makes, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to swear as much. I love that meal. It's one of my absolute favorites. She also makes this crock-pot dish that's like stuffing. It's got chicken stock, and chicken in it, and then it'll have like green beans in that. I love that. My mom's lasagna is one of my favorites. She makes a fantastic lasagna. In general, it's difficult to say this, but I think my wife's a better cook than my mom. And so her family's all tremendous cooks as well. So there's a lot that they make, but those are probably my 2 favorite meals. Favorite drink, more difficult. Alcoholic drink when I was a drunk. My favorite liquor drink was rum and Coke. I loved Kraken rum with a little bit of Coke. That was my favorite. When it comes to alcohol, like a beer, I don't know, I'm usually just like a Busch Light drinker. I don't really like the taste of most beers, so I just prefer something light and easy to drink. A beverage outside the scope of that, I try to drink a lot of water. I like green tea. I do like these new Celsius like energy drink sparkling waters. So I do like those, but I'm not a big like fancy beverage guy. Basically just water, green tea, sometimes diet soda. That's about it. Favorite dessert. Now, I got done saying that my wife's a better cook than my mom, but I think my mom's a better baker than my wife. She makes a absolutely tremendous apple pie. It is phenomenal. She makes this pudding dessert with like this crust that's made of nuts. So you'll have like vanilla chocolate pudding, whipped cream, nuts on the top, and then this nut crust. That's one of my favorites. But my absolute favorite that she makes it's like an apple cake. It's called Apple Bar. It's freaking phenomenal. So that's my favorite dessert. My wife does make good dessert. My wife makes the world's best Rice Krispie treats. I don't know what she does specifically, but it is tremendous. So hopefully I didn't cheat out not doing a YouTube video on that, but someone could clip it if they want, I guess. Yeah, Jojo Geeker's my brother in real life, so he knows about... yeah, he's a way better cook than me. My brother's actually a good cook. By the way, I got to get a hold of you, Jojo, sometime this week to talk about Thanksgiving. We got to come up with a plan. I don't know if our parents are going to be around, but I still think we could do something. So I'll get in touch with you about that. Crack in rum. Kraken. It's a dark rum. Maybe she uses brown butter. I don't know. But, all right. Any particular interest in a political video that you would like me to impromptu do, like a 2-minute video on? Get your super chats in. I'm grifting for the monies. Someone asked, am I going through a tough time financially? Not necessarily. A little bit, but I'm not like not able to pay the bills or anything like that. But there were some changes at work. I haven't had the Kraken coffee rum now, but I'm doing much better than most people are. So don't feel obligated like I'm going to be in the poorhouse or something if I don't get any sort of donation. But I'll still grip for your donations. Back to the Men for Kamala video. Yeah. Did you watch some Penguin episodes? No. I was confused there for a minute because I thought you meant games because I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. No, I haven't seen the show The Penguin yet. I've heard it's very good though. Here's the question I have about the Penguin show. What universe does it take place in? Is it like the same as the Robert Pattinson Joker? Or is it the same as like the Gotham City show that was on? Or is it just like an independent thing that I won't have had to have watched? Because I haven't watched any of those shows or movies. So it's part of the Robert Pattinson. Okay. Should I watch that movie before I watch The Penguin? Because I am interested. I like Colin Farrell, and it looks interesting. And I've actually heard good things about the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, so I was going to watch it at some point. Okay. Well, maybe I'll watch that Batman movie at some point and then start watching episodes of The Joker. The gentleman I take care of at work, primarily, I work with people, adults with developmental disabilities. We're always looking for things to watch on TV. He really likes action movies and horror movies, so we're looking for something new to watch. So maybe we'll give that a try. We'll watch that Batman movie and then watch that show if he's interested in it. Penguins are 2-2. Okay, yeah. I saw Malkin had his 500th goal, which is impressive achievement. Just checking my messages real quick. Kevin, I already answered your question about Pisco. Do you have some sort of fetish? Is that what's going on? I already said I don't have any bad blood to him. He gets butthurt about stuff. I thank God you're behind a computer screen and I can't see what you're doing to yourself as you continue to breathlessly ask me about him and if we're getting back together. I don't know how many times you need me to answer before you finish or whatever, but I'll kindly set that out. Am I going to be doing an election night stream? Yeah. The plan is I'll probably start towards the evening. I'm taking election week off, so I'll be doing a 24-hour stream. That's going to be November 2nd, going in 24 hours to November 3rd, starting at 8 a.m. on November 2nd. But I will also be streaming election night. The plan is to try to, as best as possible, help people that need to get out to vote that day. So if I have to drive people to the polls, things like that, I'll be trying to do my best to do that. But obviously then in the evening, I'll probably stay up to the wee hours of the night. Now, truth be told, we're not going to know, unless Kamala wins easily, we're not going to know who wins on election night. Because we're basically a third world country that will be counting ballots for weeks and weeks and weeks until Kamala wins. So if she wins the night of the election, then she wins. If she doesn't win to the night of the election, then we'll count ballots until she wins weeks later. That's how it'll go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that the Internet Archive was down. I was actually going to use it today for something, and I saw that it was down, so interesting. Second world? Fourth world? What do you want to say? Kevin, still haven't finished. Can ballots not be counted until voting is closed? It depends. It's different in different areas. So oftentimes what happens is some places, if I remember, some states, they'll have all of the mail-in ballots counted beforehand. They just don't disclose until the polls close. Then they'll disclose that. But some, I don't believe they start counting until the polls close. But don't quote me on that. But I understand why they wouldn't want to release the results of early voting early, because that could affect how people would vote. So you'd want to keep mum about it, hypothetically. Emily A., Super Chat, $25, thank you. Can I reserve a question for you to answer for when I don't have to think of something on the spot? Yes. Remind me. I donated $25. Yes. If you think of anything before I head out here, too, let me know. But we'll probably go for another 15, 20 minutes. Take your hat off. No thanks. I'd take my hat off not for you, but not for those purposes. Will Georgia be the first to tip off the result? No, I don't think so. In other words, if Georgia goes red or blue, if Georgia goes blue, I would say that could be a tip-off. But if Georgia goes red, I still don't think that would be enough. And again, the chances of us knowing Georgia on election night probably slim to none. I predict that it's Fairfax, right? Fairfax County. I predict that maybe some pipes will burst or whatever. We'll have a drawn-out situation. What's the thing about the Department of Defense? What specifically? Fulton County, there it is. Fairfax is Virginia, yeah. Joy. Vibes. Testy. What an interview, right? With Kamala. Still don't know how to pronounce her name. Don't care. The old pipes. It's not about who's more popular. It's about who gets more votes and who counts the votes. Kamala Harris will win PA. I do not believe that any sort of polling advantage will be able to overcome the advantage in ballot harvesting. So, and I think that that'll be the end of Donald Trump if Kamala wins PA. Now, it's possible that he could win without PA, but I have not seen evidence that there has been significant change brought on by Republicans to ensure that what happened in 2020 and 2022 does not occur again. So, I don't think that. Now, if you have a proclivity to think that there is cheating that will occur, that's not a reason. Someone said earlier that, of course, it's not over. Of course not. And I've talked about this many times. Even if, let's just say hypothetically, there was going to be cheating, they couldn't cheat, for example, in an election that's 90% for Trump and 10% for Harris. That level of cheating would be impossible. It would be too blatant. Now you're like, oh, of course, clearly. But they couldn't cheat 70-30. They couldn't cheat 60-40. They couldn't even cheat 55-45. 51-49, maybe. 30,000 votes in a state, maybe. But they're not going to be able to cheat millions upon millions of votes in each state. They just can't. Camel burn. That's funny. Isaiah, I have no idea what you're talking about. You asked me, what's up with the DOD? I said, the Department of Defense, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you say, DOD? That doesn't help me in what your question is. Well, the ballot harvesting ensures that a place like Philadelphia, though, I'm not even talking about fraudulently. I just mean, like, think about it. Ballot harvesting encourages people that are low propensity voters that maybe wouldn't find their way out election day to just be able to easily do something. So someone comes, and it's going to be more effective in urban areas because the ballot harvest, like where I live, you're talking about, only a few houses in a mile stretch. But in like an urban environment, there's literally thousands of people that are living within a mile. So if you're collecting ballots to harvest, you're going to be able to get way more of those. So ballot harvesting, I'm not even saying fraudulently, really advantages a place like Philadelphia. So you're going to see their numbers go up from where they would have been in like 2016. If Trump loses, it's not a win-win because here's the two things that are likely to happen. One, you're likely to see an increase in censorship. Yes, Kamala will win. You're likely to see an increase in censorship, which will ensure that number two happens. And number two is you're not going to see good candidates. You might like the candidates. We'll go back to the Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan Republican Party, which I don't give a shit about. Ballot harvesting is the ability for one person to collect multiple ballots that were mailed out and then take those ballots and drop them off at a location. So traditionally, you would have to vote in person unless you needed to request an absentee ballot because you were overseas fighting in the military or you had some infirmament where you were sick and you couldn't get out. Other than that, you had to go vote in person. Now we have mail-in ballots where your signature doesn't have to match the signature that was on your voter registration. So we just mass send these ballots out. Then a person could come to your home and say, hey, do you got that ballot? I'm going around the neighborhood here collecting everyone's ballot. Fill it out real quick. Give it to me. I'll drop them off at the box. Then you go to the drop-off box and you drop off 50 ballots. I don't know. I would say the chances are pretty good that Trump will go to jail if he loses. There is a chance, though, that they try to proffer some deal with Trump where they're like, if you quietly go away, we'll absolve you of this stuff. Yeah, with all of Trump's flaws, he's at least a potential outsider like Ron Paul was. I don't think I like Ron DeSantis. I think it's a mistake to assume, well, once Trump's out, then it'll be Ron DeSantis or then it'll be J.D. Vance. Maybe it'll be Nikki Haley. That's who it'll be. I don't give a shit. I will not vote for Nikki Haley. Fuck it. Nikki Haley is literally just another face of the establishment that will be interested in censoring disinformation, continuing to fund foreign wars. continuing to allow the border to be open, continuing to allow the indoctrination of our children. She'll pretend not to, but that's who she is. She's just an establishment goon. Same thing. So, do you think Trump will go to jail? I already answered that. It's all right, conservative Congress. Don't worry about it, man. Why would Destiny want it? Destiny runs from me. For all the times I talk to Destiny, almost all of it is in the environment that he wants. For example, it's on a panel where it's moderated by someone like Connor. Both times I talked to Destiny in the recent past on a panel was with Connor. Then there were times where Destiny requested that I call in to talk about specific things. The semantical definition of what insurrection is. January 6th, when he was prepping for his debate with Alex Jones, he requested that I call in about that. He requested that I call in and talk about my job, home health care, which wasn't really a debate. And then he blacklisted me when I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about, and he rage quit and then blacklisted me. But it's not the end of the world, and I'll continue to tell. I don't know if I'm black. I called into a Spaces one time afterwards that Pisco let me in, but that was before Pisco got really upset and put me on notice for calling him a lawyer. So who the fuck knows? I don't care. They stay in their little bubble. Here's the thing. This is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll go out. All those people know that I'm probably the best debater that they face. They all know it. When I did... Look, I know a lot of you like Andrew Wilson. Andrew's easier for them to debate in some sense. I'm not saying Andrew's not a good debater, but they're just going, their strategy in dealing with Andrew Wilson is just, he's a shitty person. He's not arguing the specifics of things, blah, blah, blah. They all know I'm a fantastic debater. So when I did that panel the other day, and you have Hutch, and you have Pisco, and you have IRI, I will guarantee they all know. If you could talk to them, if you were a fly on the wall, they'd be like, yeah, Rob's the one we have to worry about. They know it. They all get together. They have little powwows to strategize. It's fine. They know it. They don't want to give me oxygen. They know. I guess I'm still on notice. I don't know, Adion. It's a terrible fate. I hope that none of you are ever put on notice by a fantastic lawyer like Pisco. The TikTok invasion, I tried. I was having trouble getting it to work. Andrew's really good. Andrew's better at debating like philosophical issues than me. But as far as like a political thing, I think even Andrew would say as sort of like normative politics stuff. Yeah, I saw that leak, Crucible Clips. I mean, whatever. I mean, listen, I've talked about this before. I don't give a shit. I really don't. And I know that upsets a lot of people, but my feeling is this. I'll just put it to you this way. Let's say I do this stream tonight. I'm talking about Kamala Harris sucks, and I'm voting for Trump, and and then I do another stream tomorrow, and all of a sudden some organization calls me. Let's say it's Glenn Beck, and he's like, Rob, fantastic. I don't want to mess with your content whatsoever, but what would you say to me paying you $5,000 a month that you could use to grow your channel and blah, blah, blah? I would say, yes! Does that make me a shitty person? I don't think so. Should I disclose that I'm being paid? Sure. And if I don't, I guess it's a little bit of a problem. I don't think it's a huge deal. What if they say, but we have some notes, we have some requests? Well, it depends on what the requests are, what the level of ethical violation would be. For example, let's say the requests are no swearing. I don't think anyone would say, oh, Rob sold out. He changed his content. No, I just stopped swearing as much. But what if they said, but you can't criticize Trump? Now it's a little different. Total South. Stop swearing, Total South. Yeah, that's a little different. So there's different levels of this stuff. So I look at someone like Wick. Wick's probably doing the exact same sort of content that he would be doing before he was paid by Progressive Victory PAC. I don't have a problem with it. Then you look at someone like Connor from Counterpoints. I mean, he's a conservative that's now heavily advocating for a progressive PAC designed to help Democrats win down ballot and make Democrats more progressive. Ultimately, I don't give a shit. But it is true. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's why I cheer for Andrew Wilson to be doing as well as he is. I know a lot of people I respect on the right that they're not making a living doing streaming. Like, for example, Aircraft Sparky, I don't think he's rolling in the dough from streaming. My friend Drone Tech Politics, he had a tremendous channel in 2015, 2016, just doing like content pointing out like the bias of our media. He was crushing it. And then came this sort of YouTube demonetizing right-wingers like him, and his channel's never recovered. That was way back in like 2016, 2017. You know? My friend Let's Be Frank, my friend Sarah Kane. They're good people. Most of them aren't making a living off of this. Andrew's making a living off it at the Crucible. He's one that broke through. And I applaud him for that. And by the way, he's always been incredibly generous to me as well. So kudos to him. You know, but I'm under no misapprehension. Like, I'm not making a living doing this. I have a full-time job, etc. And it is a little disheartening when you see the people that are making it. Most of them suck. Like, the people on the right that are really making money hand over fist, like Ian Miles Chung. I'm sorry. And then there are other people, I won't name names, but there's an awful lot of people that are getting money from this company or that company and are doing quite well. And I don't know that they're as talented as some of the other people that I mentioned or myself. So, I don't know. It's, in that sense, you know, it's the same as it ever was, though, in many things. How many people, I know a bunch of people that were, like, musically talented and had bands and stuff. But what are it's not just being talented that makes you the money. You have to have the breaks go your way. You have to know the right people, you know, or you have to sell out, or you have to be the type of person that'll step over people to, step on people and use them. And it's just not me. It's just not who I am. Now, my wife would very much like me to sell out, and who knows, maybe I will. Like, I'm telling you right now, I don't have it in me to go on the Whatever podcast and start yelling at OnlyFans girls. Do I think that it's a mistake to do OnlyFans? Yeah, I do. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, you're all ugly, you're 3 out of 10. People do that, that's fine. I don't mind them doing that. But it's not me. And it would be fake if I went on there. It would not be who I am. But I could do it. I could. I would be able to say the right things. I don't think I'd be as good as Andrew, but I'd be able to say the right things. And it certainly would help my channel, but I'm not going to do it. It's not who I am. Again, I'm not saying, that I think it's unethical to do that. That's not what I'm saying. It's just not me. It is fun to yell at people. That's true. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll sell out. Maybe you'll see me on Whatever 3 months from now, just like, you're a 2 out of 10. You disgust me, you hoe. And you'll be like, wait a minute. Didn't Rob say that's not him? That would be selling out? Shh. It's funny, though. I see these people like Destiny goes on Piers Morgan. I mean, I'll be honest. I see like these people that get these big debates with Destiny, and I can't help but be like, man, I feel like I even if you don't think I crush Destiny, which I think I do most times, it's clear that even those on the left know that I'm probably one of his hardest debates. I never get those offers. I don't get shit. So, I don't know. Yeah, I agree, Joshua. Anyways, that's it. That's the show for tonight. Tomorrow will be a call-in show. That'll be the last show. Probably, maybe I'll try to do one Monday or Tuesday, but unfortunately, with my busy work week, I didn't get off work until today. And then I have tomorrow off, the full day. I will stream tomorrow. But then I go right back into work Saturday, and I'll be there 24/7. Well, it's true I don't have Destiny's audience. That's absolutely true. So you would understand why Destiny gets bigger offers, and that's why the people that Destiny's debating. What I'm talking about is the ability to debate, is what I'm talking about. And yes, of course, if you're someone like Piers Morgan, you want to bring people on that have a big audience to build up your own audience, and I don't have that. But I think I would do fantastic on like a Piers Morgan show, particularly debating some of these unhinged lefties like Destiny or Mehdi Hassan, many of these other people. So, anyways, it's been a fantastic evening. Let's raid someone on Twitch. Pay it forward. Thanks so much, Gibbs. Thanks to everyone for your donations. Emily, don't forget to remind me.
Ready, plays.
Forget to remind me that I owe you a YouTube video. We're going to raid Ranger and Rogue. So, I really do appreciate you all. I really do. So, thanks for sticking it out with me. Channel's going to continue to grow. If you want to help me, one of the things you could do is I'm trying to put at least one YouTube short up every day on YouTube. So, we're still going to have Black Elk edit a video and put that up at least 4 days a week. And I'm going to try 5 days a week to be doing a YouTube short. Please, if you just give a thumbs up to that short, that would mean the world to me. So if you do that, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't liked the video, consider doing that as well. Thank you all. Those on Twitch, enjoy this raid of Ranger and Rogue. I will see you tomorrow between 6 and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much as always. Have a good one.
We just buy a new trash can.
You don't have the salt pepper?
No, I got upstairs.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.